Okay, first I'm going to read you off some characteristics that describe your generation.
Okay.
They are practical, self-reliant, individualistic, technologically adept, flexible, you value work and life balance, you work to live, not live to work, and you're independent thinkers. Do you feel these characteristics are descriptive of your generation, are true? Why or why not?
I would say overall that's pretty descriptive of me. Can I see that list?
Yeah.
Copy right off this list. One of the things that stood out that you said was how I value work and life, but there's balance, and I guess that's kind of a focus that I have as a husband, as a father, as a school employee. One of my struggles is how do I try to balance those things. That's really important to me. Practical, I'm a very practical person. How I use my time, how I use my gifts and so forth. Self-reliant, individualistic, those things pretty well describe me. Independent thinker, I'm not much of a thinker at all, so
okay.
that would not describe me.
I'm sure you aren't teaching A&P. Okay, how do you perceive our generation?
Your generation?
Yep.
Your generation, I think, is probably different than mine. You're very much into technology, very much into communicating that way, in modes of technology, email, texting, things like that, and we didn't have those growing up. I mean, it was face to face. It was growing up. It was getting together with kids on the block and playing games, and now it's video games, and I don't know. There's this real world and cyber world that I kind of see kids growing up with, and so in that regards, it's a lot different.
All right. What were some of the fads that you remember growing up when you were a teenager and young adult?
Fads, as in just things that were really popular?
Yeah. Short crazes and such.
You know, I think back to the first few video games that we had, the Atari, you know.
Space Invaders.
Yeah, Space Invaders, things like that. I think of, you know, what was real popular to us and important to us was, you know, watching football on TV, and a lot of the people watch the same things, that kind of listen to the same music. There were, you know, 5 TV stations that you watched, unless you had cable, then you were rich. We didn't have cable. My parents were teachers. We were poor. Everybody kind of listened to the same 3 radio stations, but today it's so diverse. There's so many options of what you can do.
Yep.
What was the other part of that question? Fads?
Yep.
One of those on there, Miss Sambold said that you could probably do, that she said, like the jean thing, I think.
How you roll your jeans.
Tight rolling jeans.
Tight roll
You
jeans.
could demonstrate that for us.
No, I can't do that. I did roll my jeans every once in a while. The mullet was huge. Mullets are great.
Yeah.
I wish they would come back. You know, the clothing was a lot different. But even as I grew up, that changed. You know, it was like every few years there was something totally different. So it's kind of that way today.
Yeah.
All right. Do you remember any historical events that really impacted your generation as you were growing up?
I remember certain events. I don't know how much they impacted our generation, but like when the space shuttle crashed. I remember I was in middle school. I remember where I was at. I remember, you know, the teachers turning TVs on and stuff and watching. I remember Operation Desert Storm in the early '90s when they started that. That was a big impact. You know, and even people who, when I was in high school at the time, who had been out a few years, were serving overseas. I guess other than that, those are the 2 things that stand out in my mind.
Okay. What do you remember of pop culture when you were growing up?
Pop culture as in?
Movies, games, television, commercials, songs.
You know, my wife and I, we still think the best music is back in the 80s. It just
80s rock.
We were getting into the hair bands and heavy metal, and that's all. You know, all those guys are either in nursing homes or dead. You know, that kind of thing was good. And when MTV really started off, it was actually music.
Yeah.
It wasn't what it is today.
Like
I can't even.
Teen Mom and
I can't
stuff.
even watch it now. Movies. Some of my favorite movies to this day are still movies like Top Gun or Back to the Future, kind of that mid to late 80s kind of time frame. And the funny thing is I get my kids to watch those movies every once in a while. My son loves Back to the Future. I mean, he'll watch it over and over and over. So still,
Awesome.
Still good movies. Yep.
Yeah. And then, do you remember any sayings that you and your friends used to use?
Said awesome a lot, kind of going back to the 80s a little bit. If you watch Wayne's World, all you have to do is watch Wayne's World, and that's how everybody talked back then. All of them are wrapped into a 2-minute movie right there.
Okay.
So.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
Alrighty.
Thanks for your time.
Yep.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.